Have you ever walked away from a conversation and then replayed it in your head 100 times? You hear your own voice again, that slight hesitation before you answered, the way their face changed for just a second, the message you sent, the one you shouldn't have sent, the one you definitely should have sent. And suddenly it's 2 a.m., and you're lying in the dark, reconstructing a moment that lasted 30 seconds like it's a crime scene. You tell yourself to stop. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, and yet your mind keeps circling back, searching for something, a hidden meaning, a mistake, a threat, a clue. If that sounds familiar, this isn't random, and it's not because you're too sensitive or dramatic. There's a reason you overthink every conversation, and it runs deeper than you realize. Maybe it starts small. Someone says, "We need to talk," and your stomach drops. Or you send a text and see those 3 dots appear and disappear and appear again. Or you notice a slight shift in tone, less enthusiasm, a shorter reply, a delayed response. Nothing concrete, nothing obvious. But your brain lights up like an alarm system. You start translating, decoding, analyzing. What did they mean by that? Did they sound annoyed? Was that joke too much? Did I overshare? Are they pulling away? Did I come off needy? Did I say something wrong? And the more you think about it, the more possible meanings you generate, each one slightly worse than the last. Overthinking conversations is rarely about the conversation itself. It's about what that conversation represents: connection, acceptance, belonging, or the fear of losing them. At its core, overthinking is protection. It's your mind trying to prevent pain before it happens. It's scanning for danger in the smallest details because somewhere along the way, you learned that details matter. Maybe you grew up in an environment where tone meant everything, where you had to read the room before you spoke, where a parent's silence could mean anger, where one wrong word could shift the mood of the entire house. You became hyper-aware, skilled at noticing micro-expressions, changes in energy, subtle tension. That skill kept you safe. But now, in normal adult conversations, your nervous system still reacts as if something is at stake, because to your brain, there is. Belonging has always been survival. Thousands of years ago, being excluded from the group meant danger. Isolation meant vulnerability. So your brain evolved to treat social rejection like physical pain. Studies show that the same neural pathways light up when we experience social rejection as when we experience physical injury. So when you replay a conversation, your brain isn't being dramatic. It's trying to make sure you're not about to be pushed out of the tribe. It's asking, are we still safe here? That's why a simple K instead of okay can spiral into an existential crisis. But overthinking doesn't just come from fear of rejection. Sometimes it comes from fear of being misunderstood. Maybe you felt unseen before, misjudged, reduced to a version of yourself that wasn't accurate. And now, every conversation feels like a performance you must get right. You craft your words carefully, you adjust your tone, you soften your opinions, you add disclaimers, you clarify, you re-clarify. And afterward, you audit yourself. Did I sound arrogant? Did I talk too much? Did I make it about me? Did I sound boring? It's exhausting. You're not just talking, you're managing perception. And here's the quiet truth. People who overthink conversations are often deeply empathetic. You care how you affect others. You imagine how your words land. You don't want to hurt anyone. You don't want to be careless. But empathy without boundaries turns into self-surveillance. You become both the speaker and the critic in your own head. Picture this.
You're at dinner with friends. You tell a story. People laugh, but maybe not as loudly as you expected. Later that night, your mind replays it. Was it awkward? Did they laugh out of pity? Did I interrupt someone? Did I make it weird? Meanwhile, everyone else has gone home and moved on with their lives. Overthinking makes you assume you're the main character in everyone else's mental replay. But most people are too busy overthinking their own lines to dissect yours. Another reason you overthink conversations is uncertainty intolerance. Some people can sit with ambiguity. Others feel compelled to resolve it immediately. If there's a vague response, a mixed signal, an unanswered question, your brain cannot rest until it assigns meaning. Silence feels loud. Neutral feels negative. Delayed feels deliberate. So you fill in the gaps. And unfortunately, your brain has a negativity bias. It's more likely to imagine worst-case scenarios than neutral ones because evolution favored those who anticipated threats.
So when someone says, "I'll let you know," your brain might hear, "They're not interested." When someone seems distracted, your brain might translate, "You're boring." But these interpretations say more about your inner fears than external reality. Overthinking is often a mirror. It reflects your deepest insecurities. If you fear being too much, you'll analyze whether you were overwhelming. If you fear not being enough, you'll analyze whether you were impressive. If you fear abandonment, you'll analyze whether they're pulling away. If you fear conflict, you'll analyze whether you caused tension. Your mind searches conversations for confirmation of your core wound, and sometimes it finds it, even when it's not there. There's also the illusion of control. When you replay a conversation, it feels productive. It feels like you're solving something. Like if you just think hard enough, you'll uncover the hidden truth or prevent a future mistake. But most conversations aren't puzzles to be solved. They're moments to be experienced. When you overthink, you're trying to rewrite the past or predict the future. Both are attempts to control what feels uncontrollable, how other people perceive you. Here's a gentle question. What would happen if someone misunderstood you? For many overthinkers, the answer feels catastrophic. Rejection, conflict, distance, shame. But often, misunderstandings are normal, human, repairable. Not every awkward pause is a fracture. Not every delayed reply is a withdrawal. Not every shift in tone is a verdict. Sometimes a short message is just a short message. Sometimes a distracted look is just a tired mind. Sometimes silence is just silence. Yet your nervous system doesn't always know that. If you tend to overthink romantic conversations, it may be tied to attachment patterns. If you have an anxious attachment style, you might be especially sensitive to subtle changes in closeness. You crave reassurance, but you're also afraid to ask for too much. So you analyze instead. You study their texts like literature. You count response times. You compare today's tone to yesterday's. You search for patterns. Because patterns feel safer than unpredictability. But love is inherently unpredictable. People are complex. They have moods, stressors, internal worlds you can't see. And when you assume every change is about you, you carry a weight that was never yours. Let's talk about something tender. Shame. Sometimes overthinking conversations is less about them and more about you. About an internal belief that says, I mess things up, or I say the wrong thing, or I'm awkward, or I'm hard to love. So after every interaction, your brain scans for evidence. Did I prove it again? Did I confirm what I already believe about myself?
If you grew up feeling criticized or corrected often, your inner voice may have learned to preempt criticism by criticizing you first. You become your own harshest evaluator. But imagine if you spoke to a friend the way you speak to yourself after a conversation. They'd tell you about a text they sent, worried it sounded weird. Would you say, "Yes, you embarrassed yourself. They probably think you're annoying"? Or would you say, "It sounded completely normal. You're overthinking"? Chances are, you'd offer compassion, perspective, grounding. So why is it so hard to extend that same kindness inward? Overthinking can also be a sign of intelligence. You see layers, you notice nuance, you're aware of subtext. But when that awareness turns inward without balance, it becomes rumination. Rumination is different from reflection. Reflection helps you grow. Rumination keeps you stuck. Reflection might sound like, "Next time I'll pause and listen more." Rumination sounds like, "Why did I say that? Why am I like this? I always ruin things." One leads to insight, the other leads to self-punishment. And your brain doesn't always know the difference unless you teach it. There's something else happening when you overthink conversations. You're trying to guarantee certainty in a world that offers none. You want to know where you stand. You want clarity. You want reassurance. You want to feel secure. But relationships, whether friendships, romantic connections, family bonds, even work dynamics, are living things. They shift, they breathe, they ebb and flow. You can't think your way into permanent security. Security isn't built in your head. It's built in your nervous system, in your sense of self, in your ability to tolerate not knowing. What if, instead of asking, "Did I say something wrong?" you asked, "Why does this feel so threatening to me?" What if you traced the feeling instead of the words? Maybe beneath the overthinking is a younger version of you who learned that connection was fragile, that approval had to be earned, that love could be withdrawn. Your mind is just trying to protect that younger self.
Your mind is just trying to protect that younger self. And protection isn't something to shame. It's something to understand. The next time you catch yourself replaying a conversation, try this. Pause. Notice the tone of your inner voice. Is it curious or is it accusatory? If it's harsh, gently soften it. Instead of, "I sounded stupid," try, "I felt nervous and that's okay." Instead of, "They're definitely upset with me," try, "I don't have enough information to assume that." Instead of, "I ruined it," try, "One conversation rarely defines a relationship." Overthinking thrives in isolation. When thoughts stay inside your head, they multiply. But when you speak them out loud to someone you trust, they often shrink. "I keep thinking I said something weird earlier." Most of the time, the other person will say, "I didn't even notice." And that can feel like stepping into fresh air. It's also important to notice patterns. Do you overthink more around certain people, in certain environments, after specific topics? Your overthinking isn't random. It's data. It might show you where you don't feel safe, or you don't feel secure, or you're trying too hard to be accepted. And maybe the deeper question isn't, "How do I stop overthinking?" Maybe it's, "Where do I need more reassurance from myself?" Because when you trust that you're allowed to exist as you are, imperfect, human, occasionally awkward, conversations become less like performances and more like exchanges. You won't always say the perfect thing. No one does. You won't always interpret tone correctly. Humans misread each other all the time.
You won't always be perfectly understood, and that's okay. Connection isn't built on flawless dialogue. It's built on authenticity and repair. If you say something wrong, you can clarify. If someone misunderstands you, you can explain. If there's tension, it can be addressed. You don't have to pre-solve every possible outcome in your head. Right now, somewhere in your recent memory, there's probably a conversation you're still replaying. A look, a message, a pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I afraid this means? And then ask, is there another explanation? And then ask, even if my fear were true, would I survive it? The answer is almost always yes. You have survived misunderstandings before. You have survived awkward moments. You have survived rejection. You have survived silence. You are more resilient than your anxious thoughts give you credit for. Overthinking feels like control, but real peace comes from release, from allowing conversations to end without dissecting them, from trusting that if something truly needs addressing, it will become clear, from believing that you don't have to be perfect to be valued. You are allowed to speak without auditing yourself afterward. You are allowed to exist without constant self-correction. You are allowed to be human. And maybe tonight, when your mind starts replaying that conversation again, you can gently tell it, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm safe." And then let the moment rest where it belongs, in the past. Because not every silence is a signal. Not every shift is a threat. Not every conversation needs a post-mortem. Sometimes it was just a conversation, and you are still worthy.